coming up on this Monday edition of Newsline at Noon. After more than 5 months of suspension, South Korean firms at the Inter-Korean Gaeseong Industrial Complex resume their operations today on a trial run. President Park Geun-hye and the leaders of the ruling and opposition parties will meet this afternoon in a bid to break a long political impasse. But the spy agency's alleged meddling in last year's presidential election and the Prosecutor General's offer to resign are expected to complicate discussions. Plus, Damascus hails as a victory the U.S. Russia deal on Syria's chemical weapons that averts a U.S.-led military strike. President Obama says the deal will help prevent the Assad regime from using poison gas again. These stories and more on Newsline at Noon.
Where's the best place for bibimbap?
Les Jeux Olympiques d'hiver se dérouleront-ils à Pyeongchang?
هل أنتم حقاً سابع أكبر مصدر في العالم؟
この歌手は誰ですか？你好，最近哪部电视剧的人气最旺？
Korea is attracting interest from around the world. The more you know, the more you want to know. Dynamic Korea.
Thanks for joining us. You're watching Newsline at Noon. I'm Choi Yusan in Seoul.
Very good afternoon to you. I'm Mark Broom. We start things off with the Gaeseong reopening, of course. South Korean firms with factories at the Inter-Korean Gaeseong Industrial Complex resumed operations today on a trial run. In the most concrete sign yet, that North Korea may be trying to improve its ties with the outside world.
The companies, however, face several hurdles to get their businesses back on track. Our Kim Hyun-bin reports from the Inter-Korean Transit Office at the south border with the north.
165 days. That's how long the Gaeseong Industrial Complex has been sitting idle. But Monday marks a new start for the two Koreas, as over 800 South Korean industrial workers went to Gaeseong to reboot their machines and get back to work.
We won't run on full capacity today. We will stay on partial operations. Maybe after this week's Chuseok holiday, we'll go back to our regular schedule.
Around 60% of the 123 South Korean firms are in Gaeseong and getting back to work on this Monday. But the road to normal operation looks like it'll be a rocky one.
Since the factory park has been closed for over 5 months, the firms are lacking orders from buyers. It'll probably take more than a year to reach normalization.
To minimize losses, South Korean firms in Gaeseong need to attract old and new buyers in order to operate at full capacity. Meanwhile, the Export-Import Bank of Korea is pressuring firms to return money they've taken from the Inter-Korean Economic Cooperation Insurance Fund, which is set up to help the companies take over during the shutdown. 46 firms took roughly $140 million from the fund, but paying it back could be difficult, especially considering they haven't made any sales for over 5 months. In response to concerns, the Gaeseong Emergency Committee will ask the government to extend the payback date, currently set for October 15th. Kim Hyun-bin, IDI News, Paju.
And today, the two Koreas are also exchanging their final list of those attending the upcoming Inter-Korean family reunions. Red Cross officials from both sides are meeting at the truce village of Panmunjom to exchange the names. South Korean officials say nearly 120 wartime separated family members in the south will be able to meet their loved ones in the north at the reunions slated to start next Wednesday at the North Mount Kumgang. This is the first time in 3 years that Seoul and Pyongyang will hold such an event after meetings were halted due to strained inter-Korean relations. South Korea's defense chief says North Korea is likely plotting a next generation of warfare against the South. In a meeting with reserve officers on Sunday, Defense Minister Kim Kwan-jin said Pyongyang, together with pro-North Korea groups in the South, is thought to be coming up with so-called fourth-generation warfare to cause chaos in South Korean society. Kim said it could come in the form of a cyber attack, media warfare, or a terror attack. The minister then said the South Korean and the U.S. military included training to counter such provocations during their joint Ulchi Freedom Guardian exercises last month.
President Park Geun-hye will sit down for talks with the leaders of the ruling and opposition parties this afternoon in a bid to break the ongoing political impasse. The Prosecutor General's resignation over a personal scandal last week, however, had left the three-way meeting up in the air over the weekend. Our Park Ji-won tells us more.
The main opposition Democratic Party has a very clear idea about what should be the main agenda during Monday's talks. DP leader Kim Han-gil emphasized on Sunday that the nation's spy agency's alleged meddling in last year's presidential election should be the front and center of talks with President Park and the ruling Saenuri Party. The opposition party has been staging a street protest campaign for more than a month and a half, demanding direct talks with the president over the issue. Kim also stressed the presidential office should also clear up doubts over Prosecutor General Choi Dong-uk's sudden resignation last Friday. The opposition party accuses the Blue House of pulling strings to take him down, as it was not happy with Choi's handling of recent political issues.
The Democratic Party will never turn a blind eye to the authorities' attempts to tame the nation's prosecutors. I will reveal the truth and let those in charge take responsibility.
In response, the presidential office, which has yet to accept the resignation, and the Saenuri Party said there's no predetermined agenda for the talks, so the issue could be discussed over at the three-way talks. However, they made clear they'd like to focus on issues related to the livelihoods of citizens rather than political issues. The ruling party also brushed aside claims the presidential office played a part in Prosecutor General Choi's decision to step down.
The Prosecutor General's resignation was spurred by a personal issue. It's not appropriate to turn the issue into a political talking point.
The offer for the three-way talks was made by President Park last Thursday to address the deadlock in parliament that stemmed from the National Intelligence Service's alleged attempt to swing public opinion in favor of the ruling party in the run-up to the presidential election in December. Park Ji-won, Arirang News.
Staying at the National Assembly, a special ethics committee has begun reviewing qualifications of 11 lawmakers, including Unified Progressive Party lawmaker Lee Seok-gi. He was arrested earlier this month on charges of conspiring to topple a government with a shadowy group called the Revolutionary Organization. The committee is also considering the ruling party's expulsion motion against Lee, signed by all 153 members of the party. The Legislation and Judiciary Committee is discussing the political turmoil whipped up by Prosecutor General Choi Dong-uk's resignation. While the ruling party refused to attend the meeting, opposition parties are demanding a probe into whether the Justice Ministry may have influenced Choi to step down, with an announcement to investigate allegations he had a son out of wedlock.
Some positive news from the country's trade front. Korea posted a trade surplus for the 19th consecutive month in August. The Korea Customs Service revealed Sunday that the nation logged a surplus of $4.8 billion, thanks largely to strong exports of automobiles, ships, and semiconductors. Korea posted outbound shipments worth some $46.3 billion last month, up 7.7% from the same period last year. Imports amounted to $41.5 billion, a 1% increase from last August. Korea's biggest conglomerates are choosing to hold more of their earnings in cashable assets as they remain reluctant to invest due to uncertainties at home and abroad. A recent report by media researcher FN Guide and the Financial Supervisory Service shows cashable assets held by the top 10 Korean business groups jumped 22% to roughly $230 billion over the last 2 years. By companies, Samsung Group saw the highest jump at 43% in its liquid assets, followed by Lotte Group with 35% and Hanwha Group with 27%. Experts say the increase in cashable assets is attributable to persistent economic uncertainties in Korea and overseas, which leads companies to hoard money while slashing investments. The Korea Intellectual Property Office has begun its largest restructuring in the agency's history. The aim is to streamline the patent and trademarking process to give Korean companies an edge in the global market while cracking down on counterfeit goods. Our Polly shows us how local firms are responding to the new changes.
Even though KT is one of Korea's leading telecommunications companies, its iconic brand had been denied a trademark registration due to a lack of letters in its name. However, the Korea Intellectual Property Office says its revamped screening process will no longer hold back local firms.
KT and other short English names will have easier screening standards. This will be extremely helpful to companies with respect to brand development and management.
Other big brands such as GS and NH Card have only recently received trademark approval after years of jumping through hoops. KIPO officials say they've now cut through the red tape and improved their customer service.
Since Korean IP office examiners are able to use their power to correct and quickly resolve issues, it seems to have greatly reduced the burden in terms of time and cost.
Protection of intellectual property rights is crucial to a fair competitive market and to prevent the spread of counterfeit products.
The quality of one's product is indirectly represented through its brand. That's why I think it's a good decision to have a screening policy that permits a broad trademark registration process.
It's all part of a massive reorganization at the nation's leading patent office that's focused on providing easier and faster access. The typical trademark and design patent review periods have been reduced by 3 and 5 months, respectively. The KIPO also plans to submit a comprehensive bill to the National Assembly next year to further streamline Korea's patent system.
We will prohibit counterfeit products of creative brands and designs. We will also strengthen our screening evaluations in order to give Korean companies a competitive edge in the global marketing field.
The KIPO says it's doing its part to realize the government's vision of a creative economy by paving the way for local companies to embrace emerging trends and innovative technologies. Paul Yi, Arirang News. For your fill of Korean and international news. Join Chae Yu-sun and Mark Groom every weekday at lunchtime. Newsline at Noon.
Plenary session this Wednesday and vote on the government restructuring bills.
A senior official from Japan's Fishery Ministry will visit Korea today to demand that Seoul lift its import ban on fisheries products from Japan. The Japanese government reportedly plans to take the case to the World Trade Organization if Korea does not give an acceptable explanation for its move. Our Kim Min-ji has the details.
The Korean government last week slapped an import ban on all fisheries products from Japan's radiation-hit Fukushima and 7 other nearby prefectures, regardless of whether they are contaminated or not. The Ministry of Oceans and Fisheries said it acted out of mounting concerns about radiation levels in seafood from the area. Genji Kagawa, an official from Japan's Ministry of Agriculture, Forestry and Fisheries, will visit Seoul on Monday to meet with his counterparts and demand an explanation for Korea's move. The Japanese official will also likely demand Korea to lift its import ban. Earlier this month, Japan's chief cabinet secretary said all fishery products have been under close inspection to meet international safety requirements after the nuclear disaster.
After the nuclear crisis, all products have been subject to intense checkups to meet international safety standards.
The Korean government, however, will likely reiterate its stance that the ban was necessary as there are escalating concerns about whether fish from Japan is safe to consume.
We enforce the ban as information and data from the Japanese government is not enough to determine the exact situation after the nuclear accident.
If Korea decides to leave the import ban as it is, Reports have said that Japan will likely file a legal suit against Korea with the WTO. Meanwhile, a recent survey conducted by Kyodo News shows over 60% of Japanese citizens discredit the Abe administration's claim that the leak of radioactive water will create no problems. The visit of the Japanese official will come just hours after Japan shuts down its last operating nuclear reactor in western Japan. Kim Min-ji, Arirang News.
And as Minji just mentioned, Japan has shut down its last functioning nuclear reactor, Reactor 4 at Ohi, with no timetable for a restart. Officials say the reactor, based in western Japan, stopped generating electricity early this Monday morning. Analysts say Japan will now be without nuclear power until December at the earliest, as it will take weeks, if not months, to clear all the safety checks and legal steps necessary to restart operations. Since the meltdowns at the Fukushima plant in March 2011, plants around the country have been closed, either for scheduled maintenance or because of safety fears, and they haven't been switched back on. Prime Minister Shinzo Abe is desperate to see the reactors back online, as Japan has been forced to import huge amounts of coal, liquid natural gas and other fuels to keep the power flowing.
To the latest in Syria now, the Syrian government has declared victory for its country over the chemical weapons deal struck over the weekend. With the deal, the Assad regime has until the middle of 2014 to hand over all its chemical weapons, but there's doubt over whether the country can meet the deadline. Our Connie Lee reports.
The Syrian government declared victory for its country over the recent chemical weapons deal. A Syrian minister told a Russian news network that the deal helped the country avert U.S. military action and thanked Russia's diplomacy for making the deal happen. The U.S. and Russia agreed on Saturday to bring Syria's chemical weapons under international control and destroy it all by the middle of next year. Under the deal, Syria has 1 week to declare what it has, and by November, inspectors will start arriving in the country to destroy or remove the weapons. Although the new deal postpones U.S. strikes on Syria, U.S. Secretary of State John Kerry, speaking in Israel, said military action was still a possibility.
Diplomacy has always been the preferred path of the President of the United States, and I think is any peace-loving nation's preferred choice. But make no mistake, we've taken no options off the table.
Meanwhile, a former UN inspector on chemical weapons has expressed doubts that Syria will meet the target date in destroying all of its chemical arms.
The timeline mid-2014 that the destruction has been completed by mid-2014 will be a huge challenge, and I think technically it probably will not be possible to complete by mid-2014.
Experts believe that Syria has 1,000 tons of deadly chemical weapons spread across about 50 cities. A UN report on the use of chemical weapons in Syria's civil war is set to be released on Monday. Connie Lee, Arirang News.
U.S. President Barack Obama has called on Iran to take heed of the deal reached over Syria's chemical weapons. Speaking to U.S. network ABC on Sunday, President Obama said Tehran's nuclear program was a much bigger issue for Washington than chemical weapons. He stressed that although the U.S. has not resorted to force against Syria, its credible threat of force could lead to a deal. Obama also confirmed he has exchanged letters with new Iranian President Hassan Rouhani. Analysts say Rouhani appears to be taking less of a hardline stance on Iran's nuclear program than his predecessor, Mahmoud Ahmadinejad.
Former U.S. Treasury Secretary Larry Summers has pulled out of the running to succeed Ben Bernanke as chairman of the Federal Reserve. In a letter to President Obama dated Sunday, Summers said it would hurt the nation for him to go forward with what would have been a very tough Senate fight if nominated. Obama accepted the decision, saying he was grateful to Summers for his tireless work and service on behalf of his country. Summers served as Treasury Secretary under President Clinton and served President Obama as Director of the National Economic Council in 2009 and 2010. Bernanke's term will expire at the end of January next year. Shifting gears now, the cooling fall weather has been putting Koreans at ease following one of the hottest summers on record. Families are heading out across the country to make the most of the really rather wonderful weather. Our Na Hyung-kyung takes us around the country.
The bright blue sky and rolling green hills paint the perfect picture for a getaway vacation here on Jeju Island near Seongsan Mountain's Ilchulbong or Sunrise Peak. Down below, speedboats splash amongst the waves along Korea's southern coast.
Since it's sunny and the weather is so nice, it's been so refreshing coming here to Seongsan Mountain. The wind feels great and our whole family feels really happy.
It's just one of the many destinations that shows off the country's incredible natural beauty. Here on the steps of Mount Taedok, hikers are enjoying the fresh air and cool autumn breezes.
It's always hard going up, but you actually feel the best on the way up. From now, it's the perfect type of weather to go hiking.
Back on the mainland in South Jeolla Province, residents have been hitting the local traditional markets in search of the best deals ahead of the Chuseok festivities. It's a mouth-watering view with stalls filled to the brim with fresh fruits and vegetables.
The shiitake mushrooms look good. I bought and ate some beef from here before, and I can tell you that this place is delicious.
Precious moments like these come only once a year, and Koreans will continue to embrace their adventurous sides as long as the weather holds up. Na Hyun-kyung, Arirang News.
Well, Mark, why don't we check on the weather update now with our Lee Ji-hyun standing by at the Weather Center. Good afternoon to you, Ji-hyun.
Well, hello there, Mark and Yusa. Now, are you guys having a good start to the week?
Well, thank you, Jian, for asking. Yeah, pretty good start to the week. I'm a little bit tired, I have to say. But weather-wise, this weekend, it felt like rainy season really on Saturday morning, but then yesterday it got sunnier and it was actually quite hot in the afternoon. People walking around in shorts and t-shirts.
Right. Well, what I want to know, Mark and Jian, is what the outlook is for the upcoming Chuseok holiday later this week. How does it look?
We have some stunning weather in store for this week, and afternoon highs will be hovering in the mid to upper 20s across the nation under plenty of clear skies, and today should be the brightest and warmest day of the week. Now, there's a wall-to-wall sunshine in the forecast today, and it will be a tad warmer in the afternoon than yesterday. Now, as you can see on our satellite map, there are hardly any clouds, maybe some in the east coast, but other than that, it's looking fabulous. So you should get outside and enjoy the sunshine. You'll get plenty of vitamin D from the sun today. Now, this wonderful autumn weather will continue on Tuesday as well, but while the afternoon highs will get into the mid to upper 20s, the morning lows will remain below 20 throughout the week. So please remember that we'll continue to see a huge gap in the daily temperature range for the time being. So make sure to take good care of yourself not to get sick. The country will be basking in mild and sunny weather today, so let's take a look at those numbers. The capital, Daegu and Busan will all get up to 28 degrees Celsius, that's 82 degrees in Fahrenheit, and afternoon highs in Gwangju will be 1 degree higher at 29. Now let's see how other regions are looking. It looks like Jeju and Daejeon will have similar daytime highs, while Dokdo and Mount Kumgang will top out at 22 and 20. Now that wraps up the weather forecast for Korea, and here's the global forecast for viewers around the world. that's all I have for you today. Enjoy your lunch break and hope you have a wonderful rest of the day. Now back to Mark and Yusan in the studio.
Thank you very much for your weather report there, Jian, and those are the stories we're following at this hour.
Join us again tomorrow right here on Newsline at Noon.